The stars were quiet. Too quiet. Deep in the Orion frontier, the Terran fleet moved in perfect formation, the largest and strongest collection of human ships ever assembled. Admiral Reeve stood on the bridge of the Invincible, his eyes scanning the endless black. The galaxy had seen battles, storms, and collapses of civilizations, but nothing compared to the force he commanded. Or so he thought. Then the signal came. At first, it was faint, barely a whisper through the fleet's communication network. Sensors detected an old distress beacon, encrypted in a language from centuries ago. One that should have been lost forever. The message repeated, over and over, "We are not alone. They are coming." The fleet froze in place. No ship had ever seen a signal like this. Not from the Galactic Council, not from any known alien species. And certainly not from human technology. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Mara, her voice tense. "The signal, it matches Earth's first fleet encryption. That fleet disappeared 3 centuries ago. There's no way it should still be active." Reeve frowned. "Run full analysis. I want every detail. Find the source." The AI hummed. Sensors flared across the bridge, scanning trillions of kilometers of void. The distress signal pulsed like a heartbeat, guiding the Terran fleet to a place no human had charted. Coordinates flickered on the main screen. It was a dead sector, far beyond the last known colonized systems. "Set course," Reeve ordered. "Let's see who's asking for help." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, stars stretching into lines of light. Hours passed, and still the signal persisted, constant, almost alive. Every ship in the fleet picked up the same repeating phrase, echoing across the communication channels. "We are not alone. They are coming." When the fleet emerged, the view stunned them. A planet floated in the darkness, lifeless. Its surface was scarred and blackened, covered in debris of alien ships, melted metal, and unrecognizable wreckage. There was no atmosphere, no life, nothing but destruction. "Sir, sensors detect bodies," one officer whispered. "Humans, aliens, frozen mid-battle." Reeve swallowed hard. "Bring me the closest vessel." The Invincible lowered a boarding team. They floated down through the void, lights scanning the twisted wreckage. The bodies were everywhere. Some were burnt to ash. Others looked as if they had died in an instant, eyes open, weapons frozen mid-motion. The silence of the dead world pressed against them like gravity. Then one moved. A single figure stirred, wearing an old Terran Navy uniform. The team froze. The body's eyes opened slowly, and it breathed. A voice, hoarse but clear, spoke. "You shouldn't have come. They will smell the signal." The team staggered back. Reeve's heart pounded. He had heard legends, old stories about the First Fleet. None had ever returned. And here she was, alive. Somehow. She introduced herself as Commander Elara Cade. Her story poured out like fire. Centuries ago, the First Fleet had explored deep space, encountering a species called the Eclipsed. They were predators, feeding on stars themselves, consuming energy and life. Cade's fleet had fought, resisted, and failed. Entire civilizations had been erased. Her ship had gone into stasis to hide, drifting through time until this signal had reawakened her. Reeve listened, disbelief and awe warring in his mind. "If what you say is true, why now?" "They are coming," she whispered, eyes glinting with fear and determination. "The signal, it called them. You have no idea how far their reach has grown." The fleet's sensors flickered. Shadows moved in deep space. Not shadows of planets or debris, but massive, shifting forms, dark against the stars. The AI struggled to classify them. Reeve realized the fleet might be facing something that could not be fought with normal weapons. "Prepare for combat readiness," he said. His voice was calm, but inside, fear gnawed at him. This was no ordinary threat. This was something ancient, something stronger than humanity had ever faced. Elara Cade moved among the crew, examining the fleet systems, scanning the stars. Her knowledge of the eclipsed was priceless, but even she could not hide the worry in her eyes. "We don't have much time," she said. "They can travel faster than you can imagine. If we delay, they will reach this sector before we are ready." The Terran fleet shifted, forming defensive lines around the dead planet. Every ship powered weapons, shields, and engines. The silence of space had ended. Now, the galaxy held its breath. The stars themselves seemed to darken, as if warning them. Reeve gripped the railing of the bridge. "We are humanity's strongest fleet," he said aloud, though no one answered. "We do not run. We face them." And far beyond the sensors, in the black emptiness, something massive stirred. Something old. Something that had waited for centuries for this moment. The first battle was coming. And humanity had no idea what awaited them. The fleet drifted above the dead planet, its ships forming a silent circle of light in the endless darkness. Every officer and crew member knew the same truth: this was no ordinary mission. What had been a simple distress call had become a journey into a mystery older than any living human. Lieutenant Mara studied the scans, her fingers flying across the holographic console. "Sir, the planet is dead. Atmosphere is gone. Surface is scorched." Her voice trembled slightly. "There are hundreds, no, thousands of shipwrecks. Alien ships. Human ships. All melted." Reeve stared at the display. "Explain, Lieutenant." Mara swallowed. "It's like a star exploded here, but with precision. The bodies, they're preserved. Frozen mid-action. Some with weapons drawn, some screaming. Sir, it's like time itself stopped." Reeve rubbed his chin. "Bring a boarding team. I want to see this with my own eyes." The team suited up, magnetic boots clinging to the hull of the Invincible as they descended through the dark atmosphere. The surface was a nightmare of twisted metal and charred flesh. Ships lay broken, shattered by force or heat, their weapons melted into molten puddles. Alien sigils glowed faintly on some hulls, evidence of civilizations Reeve had only read about in history archives. Then they saw it. A single, small beacon flickered among the ruins. Unlike the signal that had brought them here, this one pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Commander Elara Cade stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "This is it," she said softly. "The last active source. It shouldn't exist." A voice whispered through the team's comms. "Commander, the bodies, one of them, moves." They turned. Among the frozen soldiers and aliens, one body stirred. It rose slowly, dust and debris falling from its uniform. It looked human, though its skin was pale from stasis. Eyes opened. It breathed, steady but deliberate. "Who are you?" a soldier asked, hand on his weapon. The figure's voice was calm, but strange. "I am the one who waited, for centuries. You were not meant to come here." It was Elara Cade. She had been alive all this time, preserved in stasis by technology long forgotten. The fleet had awakened her, and she carried the truth about the dead world, and the enemy that had destroyed it. Cade led the boarding team through the wreckage, pointing out signs of the battle that had ended before it could even begin. "The eclipsed came for energy," she explained. "They feed on stars, on life itself. Every ship here, every planet, they stripped it dry. And this was just a small sector. There are billions of stars in the galaxy. They consume. They destroy. And now, the signal called them again." Reeve listened, feeling a chill settle in his chest. "If what you say is true, then why send a signal now?" "They are not blind," Cade whispered. "The signal they smell, it is irresistible. They will come, drawn to our presence, to the light of your fleet." Suddenly, the sensors flared. Shadows moved beyond the planet. Massive forms, larger than any fleet ship, shifted in deep space. The AI struggled to classify them, sending warnings to every bridge. Reeve gripped the railing. "Battle stations," he ordered. "All ships, prepare weapons. Shields up. We don't know what we face, but we do not run. Mara's voice came over the comms. Sir, they're moving fast, faster than anything we've seen. Approaching from all angles. This is impossible. The first shadows drew closer. Their shapes were strange, almost fluid, dark as the void itself. Light bent around them in unnatural ways. Sensors could not fully map them. Reeve realized with a sinking feeling that these were not just ships, they were alive, intelligent, hunting. Ilara Cade's face was grim. The Eclipsed do not fight like we do. They consume. They tear life from stars and living beings alike. Their power. Our weapons are weak against them. But there is a way, a risk. A very dangerous way. If we survive, it will take every ship in this fleet, and every one of us willing to fight, to stop them. Reeve nodded. He had no choice. The fleet had come this far. Humanity had never faced a threat like this, but the Terran fleet had always survived against impossible odds. And they would survive again. The shadows grew closer. Stars flickered, as if warning the humans of the coming storm. The dead planet below seemed to hold its breath. Every officer, every soldier, felt the same truth. The galaxy was about to see the might of humanity, and the strongest fleet would not turn away. Reeve lifted his hand. For humanity. For the stars. We fight. And far above, the massive forms moved with deadly grace. The first strike of the Eclipsed was coming, and the Terran fleet was ready. Or at least, they would try to be. The galaxy held its breath. The fleet floated above the dead world, tension crackling like static across the ships. Shadows moved in space, massive and alive, and every sensor in the Terran fleet screamed danger. But no one spoke, except for the quiet steps of Commander Ilara Cade as she walked through the bridge of the Invincible. She stopped, staring at the stars. They are here, she whispered. Her voice was soft, but every word carried weight. And they are hunting. Admiral Reeve turned to her. Then tell me everything. I need to know who, or what, we are facing. Cade took a deep breath, her eyes distant, as if seeing centuries flash before her. 300 years ago, the first fleet left Earth. We were explorers, proud, fearless. We thought we were ready for anything. But then we found them. The Eclipsed. Reeve leaned forward. The Eclipsed. They are predators, she said, her voice low. Not like any alien you've faced. They consume stars. They feed on energy, life, entire civilizations. When they strike, nothing survives. Our fleet fought them once. We tried to protect the outer colonies. We failed. Every ship, every life gone. Only I survived. My ship went into stasis to hide. Until now. The bridge went silent. The crew processed her words. A species that could eat stars? That had destroyed fleets centuries ago? And now, somehow, it was coming again. Reeve's voice was firm. Then we prepare. Tell us what we need to do. Cade's eyes scanned the fleet. We cannot fight them with normal weapons. Energy beams, missiles, even torpedoes, they will barely scratch them. The only way to stop them is extreme. We need to overload a star. A red giant nearby could be our weapon. But the risk, if it fails, everything here dies. The fleet shivered. Overloading a star meant risking not just their lives, but the surrounding systems. Reeve swallowed hard. We have no choice. Prepare the plans. Engineering, read me every detail. We'll need every ship, every weapon ready. Meanwhile, shadows in space grew closer. The Eclipsed were massive, their forms shifting in ways human minds could barely understand. Their dark shapes blocked the light of distant stars. Sensors registered impossible movements, faster than hyperspace, faster than any human ship. Reeve realized something terrifying. The fleet's weapons might not just be weak, they might be useless. Ilara Cade walked among the crew, her hands tracing the panels of the bridge, checking every system. They can smell the signal, she said. Every ship here makes them stronger. We need to act quickly. They will not wait. They never do. A young officer spoke up. Commander, if they are so powerful, why are we not destroyed already? Cade looked at him, her eyes sharp. Because they are patient. They wait for prey to come to them. And you just walked into their hunting ground. Reeve clenched his fists. Then we hunt back. The first of the Eclipsed approached. Its form loomed over a nearby destroyer, massive and black, absorbing the faint starlight. Sensors screamed warnings, alarms blared, but it was almost beautiful in its terror. A predator of unimaginable power, moving with intelligence and malice. Cade stepped closer to Reeve. We need to lure them toward the red giant, she said. All ships, full power. Make them follow us. But we cannot fight directly. We only survive if they go where we want them. Reeve nodded. Form ranks. Shields at maximum. Weapons ready. We move on my order. Outside the bridge, the stars twisted as the Eclipsed advanced, their shapes undulating, almost like they were alive. One massive shadow split in two, revealing smaller forms, hunting independently. Reeve realized there would be no retreat, no escape. Humanity's strongest fleet was about to face a foe it had no right to survive against. Cade's eyes met Reeve's. I warned you, she said softly. But if we act together, if we trust each other, maybe we can win. Maybe we can make them pay for what they did to my fleet. Reeve looked around at his crew. Every soldier, every engineer, every pilot had fear in their eyes, but also determination. Humanity had always faced impossible odds. This would be no different. Then we fight, he said. Not just for us. For every life they would destroy. For humanity. For the stars. And in that moment, the first shadow struck. It moved faster than the eye could see, slicing through space toward the nearest frigate. Energy shields flared. Weapons fired. But even as the blast hit, the shadow seemed to absorb it, almost feeding on the attack. The fleet held its breath. The battle had begun. And the galaxy would soon see what humanity was capable of when faced with darkness. Far beyond, the dead world below remained silent, watching as the Terran fleet, the strongest in human history, prepared for a fight that could decide the fate of billions of stars. The Terran fleet held position in the darkness, waiting. The stars around the dead planet seemed to dim, almost as if the universe itself was warning them. Shadows moved in unnatural ways, massive and alive. The Eclipsed had arrived. Admiral Reeve gripped the railing of the Invincible, eyes wide as sensors tried, and failed, to track the creatures. The Eclipsed were not ships in any normal sense. They were living constructs, absorbing light, energy, and life itself. Every beam of the fleet's weapons barely scratched their dark, shifting forms. Lieutenant Mara's voice trembled over the comms. Sir, shields are holding, but the energy readings, they're draining the stars themselves. The longer we stay here, the weaker we get. Cade's eyes never left the approaching shadows. They are testing us. Waiting to see our strength. If we falter, they will destroy everything. Suddenly, a massive tendril of black energy lashed toward the nearest frigate. The ship shuddered as shields flared, screaming alarms echoing through the fleet. Crew members braced themselves as the energy tore through the hull. Reeve's stomach dropped. Status, he barked. Frigate Valiant, critical damage. Life support failing, Mara reported. The Eclipsed moved with impossible speed, weaving between ships, striking where least expected. The Terran fleet's weapons fired continuously, torrents of laser and plasma, but the creatures seemed almost to feed on the attacks, growing stronger with every shot. Cade stepped forward, pointing at a red giant star glowing on the edge of the system. There, she said urgently. We need to lure them toward that star. Only there can we hope to trap them. But it will take every ship here, every crew willing to fight. Reeve nodded grimly. All units, full power. We move on my order. Hold formation. Lure them toward the red giant. The fleet surged forward, engines blazing. The Eclipsed followed, massive shapes cutting across the void, moving faster than any human ship could track. The energy from their bodies seemed to warp the very light around them. Crew members whispered prayers or cried silently as they watched the horrors advancing. One of the smaller eclipsed forms detached from the main body and darted toward the flagship. Sensors detected it moving almost at the speed of thought. The fleet's weapons fired in unison, but the shadow twisted and avoided every blast, leaving a trail of dead space in its wake. Cade moved to Reeves' side. "Admiral, if we can get them close enough to the star, the quantum mines will overload it. The explosion will be enough to destroy them, or at least cripple their fleet. But the timing must be perfect. One wrong move, and the star will take us all with it." Reeves' jaw tightened. "Then we have no choice. We do this. Humanity does not run." The Eclipsed split into multiple forms, striking at every angle. Explosions rocked the fleet as ships fired in desperation. One cruiser went dark, its hull torn open by a tendril of shadow. Mara's voice cracked over the comms. "Sir, they're too fast, too strong. We can't hold them for long." Cade's face was pale, but her eyes burned with determination. "Then we fight with everything we have. We lure them, we strike, and we survive if we can. This is our only chance." The fleet moved like one organism, shields flaring, weapons firing, engines blazing. The Eclipsed followed, drawn by the lure of the red giant, their massive forms swallowing the starlight. Reeve felt a chill as he realized the scale of what they were up against. These creatures were not just hunters, they were destroyers of worlds, unstoppable forces that had waited centuries for a moment like this. The first wave of Eclipsed reached the outer edge of the star's gravity well. The fleet held formation, steady but strained. Every ship was working at maximum capacity. Cade monitored the energy flow of the approaching shadows, calculating how long they could hold them. "Admiral," she said quietly, "they will reach the red giant in minutes. We must be ready to trigger the mines. One slip, one hesitation, and we all die." Reeve took a deep breath, gripping the railing. "Then we will not hesitate. Humanity fights, or it dies." The Eclipsed moved closer, their massive, dark forms eclipsing the light of the star behind them. Shadows of unimaginable size stretched across the fleet, and the crew could feel the oppressive darkness pressing down, threatening to snuff out even their courage. But the Terran fleet did not flinch. Engines roared, shields blazed, and weapons fired in a symphony of light and heat. They were humanity's strongest, and they would hold the line. Above the dead world, amid the black sea of space, the first true battle of the Eclipsed and humanity had begun. The stars themselves seemed to watch, knowing that the next few minutes would decide the fate of countless lives, planets, and the very light of the galaxy. And somewhere in the dark, Elara Cade whispered, "Hold fast, we will show them the strength of humanity." The red giant glowed like a warning in the void, a massive, burning sun on the edge of the system. The Terran fleet moved carefully, engines straining, weapons blazing, shields at full power. Every ship carried the weight of humanity's hope, every crew member knowing that failure meant the end of everything they had fought for. Commander Elara Cade stood on the bridge of the Invincible, her eyes fixed on the massive shadows moving through space. The Eclipsed were coming faster now, their forms writhing like living darkness, absorbing the fleet's firepower with terrifying ease. "The timing has to be perfect," she said quietly to Admiral Reeve. "If the mines detonate too early, the star will not destroy them. Too late, we all die." Reeve nodded. "Then we hold them off until the moment comes. Full power, all weapons. No retreat." The first Eclipsed forms struck. Massive tendrils of darkness tore through the outer cruisers. Shields flared, energy discharges lit the void, but the creatures kept advancing. One frigate exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shards of metal and fire into space. Crew members screamed in terror and determination, holding their ground against impossible odds. "Status!" Reeve shouted. Lieutenant Mara's voice trembled. "Outer perimeter is breaking. Shields are dropping." Some ships, destroyed. We can't hold them much longer. Cade moved through the bridge, monitoring the quantum mines rigged around the red giant. We're close. Keep them moving toward the star. Do not let them deviate. Every second counts. Another eclipsed ship darted toward the flagship, faster than sensors could track. Energy blasts struck it, but it seemed to absorb every attack, feeding on the light. Reeve gritted his teeth. Fire everything. Focus all weapons on it. Explosions lit the void. The Invincible shuddered as a massive tendril scraped across its hull. Crew members struggled to maintain control. Cade's face was pale, but her eyes burned with resolve. We can do this. We have to do this. Humanity cannot fail now. Minutes passed like hours. The fleet fought desperately, each ship a wall against annihilation. The eclipsed closed in, faster and stronger with every passing moment. The first wave of losses had already been high. The outer cruisers were gone. The middle lines were struggling. Only the core fleet remained intact, holding the shadows just enough to guide them toward the red giant. Then, the unthinkable happened. The timing mechanism on one of the mines malfunctioned. The countdown froze. Alarms blared across every bridge. Cade's voice cracked with urgency. Admiral, the mine is stuck. If we cannot trigger it manually, we all die. Reeve's heart sank. Who can do it? Cade stepped forward without hesitation. I will. Absolutely not. Reeve shouted. We need you alive. You've survived centuries. We can't lose you now. I've already lost everything, she said quietly. I am not leaving humanity behind. Someone must trigger it. That someone is me. Before Reeve could protest further, Cade activated her personal shuttle. Engines flared as she separated from the flagship. The crew watched in stunned silence. She would fly into the heart of the red giant's gravity well, a suicide mission, to ensure the star exploded at the perfect moment. Reeve gritted his teeth. Hold the line, he shouted. Do not let them devour us while she makes her move. The eclipsed surged forward, sensing the opportunity. Massive shadows split, striking at the remaining ships. Lasers and plasma fired endlessly. Explosions tore through space. Yet, somehow, the fleet held. Every ship fought with unmatched courage, humanity's strongest fleet refusing to yield. Inside her shuttle, Cade guided herself toward the red giant, dodging massive tendrils of shadow. The heat and radiation were unbearable, the gravitational pull relentless. Yet she pressed on, her hands steady, her mind focused on one goal, the survival of humanity. Finally, she reached the optimal position. The quantum mines connected, energy levels rising. The countdown resumed. On the bridge of the Invincible, Reeve watched, heart in his throat. Come on, come on. The star flared. Light exploded across the void, a massive, silent supernova consuming everything near it. The eclipsed forms were caught in the blast, writhing as the energy tore through them. Some dissolved instantly. Others screamed, but there was no sound in space. The fleet shuddered as shockwaves rippled outward. Ships barely maintained formation, shields straining to hold them together. Then, silence. The red giant had detonated perfectly. The eclipsed were gone, or at least, most of them. The void was still and dark, except for the scattered debris of destroyed ships. Humanity had survived the first phase of the war, but the cost had been high. Reeve's voice broke the silence. Status report. Everyone, alive. Mara answered, her voice shaky. Most of the core fleet. Casualties, heavy. We lost many brave souls. Commander Cade, her shuttle, we have no contact. Reeve closed his eyes, grief and pride mixing. She did it. Humanity survives. Because of her. And far in the void, somewhere near the destroyed red giant, Elara Cade's shuttle was lost, but her courage had bought the Terran fleet the time it needed. The eclipsed may not have been defeated, but humanity had struck back. Humanity had shown its strength. Above the dead world, the fleet regrouped. Ships were damaged, crews weary, but the spirit of humanity burned brighter than any star. They had fought the impossible, and survived. The galaxy would remember this moment. The strongest fleet in human history had stood against the darkness, and had not faltered. The void was quiet now. The red giant had exploded in a silent blaze, consuming most of the eclipsed fleet in a spectacular supernova. The Terran fleet hovered at the edge of the shockwave, shields still glowing, engines humming, and crews staring into the emptiness, hearts pounding. Humanity had survived. But the victory felt fragile. Admiral Reeve watched the sensors carefully. The destruction had been almost total. Most of the eclipsed were gone, their massive, dark forms torn apart by the energy of the exploding star. But as the fleet sensors swept the remaining void, a single blip appeared, a massive eclipsed ship, damaged but still alive, moving away from the shockwave. "Impossible," Mara whispered. We destroyed them all." Cade's voice, calm but grim, echoed in the bridge. "Not all of them. One survived. They are smarter than we thought, and now they will follow us." Reeve clenched his fists. "Then we prepare for the next strike. Full readiness. They will not catch us off guard again." The surviving eclipsed ship moved with deliberate precision, its form fractured but terrifying. It followed the fleet silently, a dark predator marking its prey. Every sensor on every ship tracked it, every crew member aware that the threat had not ended. Cade stepped forward, her eyes cold with resolve. "They will not attack immediately. They are calculating, learning. They are waiting for a mistake. We cannot give them one. We have to anticipate their moves, stay one step ahead." The fleet moved in formation, damaged ships retreating, repairs starting where possible. Even in victory, they could not relax. Every crew member felt the weight of what had happened, and what could come. The eclipsed were powerful, relentless, and patient. Humanity's strongest fleet had survived a miracle, but the war was far from over. Reeve turned to Cade. "How much do you know about this survivor?" She shook her head. "It is ancient, older than my fleet. Its technology adapts. It will remember every tactic we used. This fight is far from over, Admiral. If we make one error, it will exploit it. Humanity cannot afford another surprise." Mara's voice trembled. "Sir, should we return to Terran space? We can regroup. Plan." Reeve's eyes blazed. "No. If we retreat, it follows us. It will strike at our colonies, our worlds, our people. We go forward. We fight, or we die." The fleet moved toward the Terran frontier, damaged ships limping through space, repairs ongoing, but spirits unwilling to break. Messages went out to distant colonies. The Terran fleet had survived the attack, but vigilance was crucial. Humanity was strong, but so was the enemy. Far ahead, the eclipsed ship followed silently, a shadow in the void, its intelligence calculating, its patience endless. It moved with quiet purpose, studying every maneuver, every tactic the humans had used. The first major battle had ended, but the Predator was not finished. On the bridge of the Invincible, Cade studied the readings. "It is learning. Faster than I expected. If it reaches full strength again, no fleet will survive it." Reeve's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure it never does. Humanity has fought impossible odds before. We will do it again." The crew moved with quiet determination. Engineers repaired, weapons recalibrated, and shields reinforced. Every member of the fleet understood one thing: the fight was not over. They had survived the first strike, but the eclipsed would return, and this time, they would not be alone. Reeve walked to the main viewport, staring into the vast, black emptiness. Stars twinkled faintly, but one shadow lurked among them. One eclipsed ship, broken but alive, following the humans across the galaxy. And in that moment, Reeve realized the truth. The galaxy had not yet seen the full power of humanity. Cade's voice broke his thoughts. "They will come again. Stronger. Smarter. Faster. But we are ready. We have survived worse than this. We are humanity's strongest fleet. We do not run. Reeve nodded, eyes burning with resolve. Then we prepare for the final strike. For humanity. For the stars. And somewhere in the darkness, the eclipsed ship moved silently, its massive, shadowy form following the fleet. The hunt was not over. The war was not finished. But the Terran fleet, battered and scarred, had shown the galaxy that humanity would not be defeated. The stars themselves seemed to watch, holding their breath, knowing that the final battle, the one that would decide the fate of billions of stars, was coming. The Terran fleet approached the edge of the frontier, battered but unbroken. Stars stretched endlessly before them, but one shadow moved among the constellations. A single eclipsed ship, fractured yet alive, still hunting. It had survived the starfire trap, learned from humanity's tactics, and now followed them across the galaxy, silent, patient, unstoppable. Admiral Reeve stood on the bridge of the Invincible, eyes scanning every sensor, every blip, every movement in the void. The fleet had lost ships, friends, and brave souls in the previous battles. But humanity still stood. And humanity would fight. Cade, Reeve said, voice steady despite the tension, we face it here. This is our last chance. If we fail, everything is lost. Commander Elara Cade, standing beside him, nodded. Her eyes glowed with determination. I warned you. This ship, it is smarter than anything we've seen. Faster than our weapons. It adapts. But it has a weakness, a trace of its old programming, a memory of the fleet I once commanded. If we can exploit it, we can end this. Reeve exhaled slowly. Then we give it everything we have. Humanity fights, or we die trying. The eclipsed ship moved closer, massive and dark, its shape shifting, absorbing light from nearby stars. The Terran fleet formed a defensive perimeter around the colony world, New Horizon, the final frontier before Terran space. Every ship was ready. Every weapon primed. Every crew member prepared to risk everything. The first strike came without warning. A tendril of darkness struck the lead frigate, flaring shields and sending alarms screaming through the fleet. Explosions erupted as the eclipsed tested their defenses, probing for weaknesses. Reeve barked orders. Hold formation. Focus all fire on its front. Don't let it break the line. The fleet fired in unison. Lasers, plasma, and missiles struck the eclipsed ship. It twisted and absorbed the attacks, feeding on the energy, yet Cade had a plan. She instructed the fleet to mimic formations from her centuries-old battle strategies, creating patterns the eclipsed would recognize, patterns that triggered a memory deep in its ancient programming. The shadow faltered. For a split second, it hesitated, confused by the human tactics it had learned centuries ago. That moment was all Reeve needed. All ships, fire the concentrated strike. Now. A wave of energy surged from the fleet, focused on the heart of the eclipsed ship. Its form warped violently, cracks appearing along its shadowy surface. Light shone through the fractures, and for the first time, the creature screamed, not with sound, but with a wave of force that shook space itself. Cade moved closer to the comms. It's working. Keep the pressure. Don't let it recover. The fleet pressed their advantage. Every attack, every maneuver, was synchronized, precise, and relentless. Slowly, the eclipsed ship began to crumble, its dark form dissolving into particles of light, scattering across the void. It struggled to adapt, but the combined force of humanity's fleet and Cade's knowledge proved too much. Then, silence. The void seemed empty for a moment, still and quiet. Sensors confirmed it, the eclipsed ship was gone. Its shadow no longer threatened the stars. Humanity had won. Reeve exhaled, voice heavy with relief. Report. Status. Lieutenant Mara answered, voice shaky but proud. All surviving ships accounted for. Casualties. Heavy. But we held. The eclipsed, gone. Cade's eyes softened as she looked at the fleet. It is finished. Humanity survived. Not because of luck, but because we did not run. We stood, we fought, and we won. Reeve nodded, pride shining in his eyes. The galaxy has seen what humans are capable of. Our fleet, our people, we are stronger than any darkness. Across the frontier, colonies began transmitting messages of hope. The story of humanity's strongest fleet spread like wildfire. Survivors spoke of courage, sacrifice, and the relentless will of humans to protect their worlds. Cade, finally resting, stared out at the stars. "They may return one day," she whispered, "but they will never find humanity unprepared. We are the defenders of the stars. And we never give up." Reeve walked beside her. "The galaxy is ours to protect, Commander. And now, everyone knows, when humanity fights, we do not run. We stand. We endure. We win." And somewhere, far beyond known space, where shadows had once hunted, only light remained. The stars shone brighter, as if acknowledging the courage of humans who had faced darkness, despair, and impossible odds, and had triumphed. The Terran fleet, battered but unbroken, continued its patrol. Humanity had survived, and the galaxy would never forget the day the strongest fleet answered the call of an ancient threat, and showed the universe the unyielding strength of humans. Ilara Cade smiled faintly, looking at the endless stars. "We fought the dark," she said softly, "and the light won. Humanity won." The stars whispered their approval. Humanity had claimed its place among them.